Thank you, Miri. It's Mortgage Monday, and today we are focusing on how to make your home mortgage work for you.
Did you know that it can be used as a financial tool for some of life's other big expenses you might encounter? So joining us now is Chong Yi of the Yi team at Fairway Independent Mortgage and Parker Trostborg of CJM Wealth Advisors. Gentlemen, welcome to Great Day.
Good morning.
Hey.
Thank you.
We think about the mortgage and we're like, okay, we got to pay this mortgage on this house, but you guys say that there's so much more we need to be thinking about as well when we're buying a home.
That's correct. So when you're buying a home, there are some other things to think about to protect yourself. One of those is life insurance. Typical rule of thumb is you want 7 to 10 times your earnings in life insurance. Say you're a younger person with a couple of kids that still have to go to college, you would want probably 10 times plus. Maybe you're closer to retirement, don't have any kids, then 7 times or below is an appropriate figure.
Okay, so when you talk about your mortgage and estate planning with life insurance and things like that, how can you really make it work for you and not just the banks? Should you think about the names, people who live in the house, the names be on the title?
So one thing to definitely think about is just the titling in general. If you're a married couple buying a house together, you'll want to make sure that the house is titled tenants by the entirety, and that is another form of protection to make sure if one of you were to get sued for something, that you can't take the whole house away from you.
Gotcha.
Interesting. Say that again for people watching.
Tenants by the entirety if you're a married couple.
Okay, good.
Chong, what else should we be thinking about when it comes to our mortgage? Because we think it's just this debt that we're incurring. So how do we use that to our benefit?
I think you should ask Parker. She's awesome. You know, Parker is, I don't know if you noticed, but he has a designation of CFP, which is kind of like, it's called Certified
Financial Planner.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the PhD of financial planners. So if
That's
you
why
need,
you work with
that's
him.
exactly
You partner
right.
yourself with some of the best people in the biz,
I'm
right?
sitting here listening to him like, oh my God, I think I know that.
I feel
but
like I
just
should
call him
take
and ask.
notes here, but I know we're going to tell people how to reach you.
I'll send you the link to the.
Okay,
to the
so
segment.
Parker, can you answer Kristen's
Actually,
question?
I can answer that. All right.
go
So
ahead.
I've always talked about the mortgage as not debt, right? I mean, people think, you know, my parents, I think we talked about this, 16.5% of the mortgage I grew up in, right? So for them, they've always talked about paying it down, right? But in actuality, if you really think about it, like if you think about like what's your maximum return on investment, so if you're paying at 4%, which is where we are now, better than when we were last time, after your tax benefits and all the stuff that we're talking about, you're really paying at 3%. So I look at that and I'm like, well, can you make more money on the money, on debt at 3%? Absolutely. And I would say give it to Parker because he's going to give you a bigger return on investment. So the money that you're putting into the mortgage, I always think it's a tool to get you into a place where you can have this huge asset. And like, for instance, in Arlington, houses are going crazy in a lot of parts of our area. So I'm huge in using the mortgage as a tool to buy that asset as opposed to treating it as debt.
Assets like, I mean, whether, using that mortgage as a tool, not just physical assets, but like college education or something, right? I mean, you want that house that your family's going to be in, but you still know that your kids have to go to college. But how can you use that to help that?
Exactly. So Chong and I actually had a recent case where the couple wanted to cover their kids' college education no matter what. They'd already spent all of their education savings on private high school. So what Chong was able to kind of structure for them, and we're still trying to work on it, is do a cash out refi of their current home, take those proceeds out. They were able to pay off the student loans and the parent loans that they already have in place and going to be able to cover the last year of college. And at the same time, it's going to lower their monthly payment and they will have the payments all done by the time they retire. So it's a pretty good deal for them.
Absolutely.
That sounds encouraging to some people. You can also help people use life insurance in addition to their mortgage as a tool to help pay for education.
Not necessarily to pay for education, but it's just a form of protection. So if I were to get hit by the bus, I don't want my wife to have to cover the whole mortgage by herself, so she would have some proceeds there.
Any additional advice for people who may be at risk of being house poor, or they feel like they're in a situation where, oh my gosh, I'm house poor and I don't even know how I got here?
I think for starters, I always go back to don't think of the mortgage as debt. So reduce your payment as much as possible. I mean, to the point where it's almost like, I want to borrow as long as I possibly can with the lowest payment possible, because at the end of the day, if you want to save for that occasion where you can't make that payment, you want to minimize your payment. But also the extra money that you're saving, you can turn that into assets for you. You can turn into once again, give it to Parker to return for you.
Sounds
right?
like we need an expert to help us figure this
so many
out.
options we didn't know about that we had. Parker, Chong, so great to have you here.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for enlightening us. And if you have more questions or want to see how your mortgage can help you, to inquire now about financing your home or anything else, contact Chong Yi at the Yi team at the YiTeam.com. I'm repeating myself, but the YiTeam.com. This segment was sponsored by the Yi Team.